My name is Allie Futty. I'm a teacher of the visually impaired, a certified orientation and mobility specialist, and a certified assistive technology instructional specialist for people with visual impairments. I am currently the program manager for the Northeast Resource Center for Vision Education at UMass Boston. And today I want to talk a little bit about assistive technology and CVI and what I think you might need to know about that topic.
Part 6, Quality Indicators for Assistive Technology.
Okay, so now I want to talk just really briefly about quality indicators for assistive technology services. So to learn more about this, I highly recommend that you visit QIAT.org, QIAT.org. But essentially, hundreds of individuals from the AT field are involved in the development and maintenance of the quality indicators. They're intended to be widely applicable in school settings, and their intended audience are school districts as they strive to develop and provide quality assistive technology services aligned to federal, state, and local mandates, assistive technology service providers as they evaluate and constantly improve their services, consumers of assistive technology services as they seek adequate assistive technology services which meet their needs, universities and professional developers as they conduct research and deliver programs that promote the development of the competencies needed to provide quality assistive technology services, and policymakers as they attempt to develop judicious and equitable policies related to assistive technology services. So why am I talking to you today about the quality indicators? The reason is that I often get the question from parents or service providers in the schools, well, how do we know if we're doing this right? Something's not going right. My students, we've been trying to teach them how to use this device for a couple of years, but I love everybody on the team and everybody's working hard, but we're just having these challenges and we can't quite figure it out. Well, I always refer people back to the quality indicators for assistive technology services because I think they're really approachable, easy for the team to use, and just might help you get to the bottom of what are some of the why are some of these challenges in our particular situation arising. So the rationale for the use of them is maybe you have inconsistent or non-existent processes for selecting AT and providing AT services, in your district. Maybe they're really, that kind of inconsistent process is really widespread. AT has to be considered by law in the IEP process, which we've talked about. However, no specific federal guidance exists as to what it means to, quote, consider AT. Widespread research exists that supports the use of AT for students with disabilities and demonstrates across many domain areas it can improve outcomes. And QIAT also considers the needs of the family and personnel working with the student. And I think that's so critical because, realistically, if I polled parents all across this country with kids with just say disabilities in general, what kind of robust, meaningful training that they have received on their child's particular devices, I'm sadly would think that the numbers would be pretty low. And yet the law says that that training needs to be happening and it should be in the child's IEP. So QIAT, I think, helps kind of capture that. Okay, so there's these different quality indicator areas that you can look at as a team. So there's the consideration of AT needs, the assessment of AT needs, including AT in the IEP, assistive technology implementation, the evaluation of the effectiveness of assistive technology in transition, professional development and training in assistive technology, and administrative support of assistive technology services. The last two are going to be a little bit more applicable at the district level, but the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are really usable by just your average IEP team. So some basic principles that underlie all areas of QIAT. It is essential that all AT services developed and delivered by states or education agencies are legally correct according to the mandates and expectations of federal and state laws. AT efforts at all stages involve ongoing collaborative work by teams that include families and caregivers, school personnel, and individuals from other service agencies as appropriate. All team members involved in AT processes are responsible for following the code of ethics for their respective professions. Nothing being asked of them should negate their responsibility. Okay, so each quality indicator is going to have some components, and these components are the same across all the quality indicators. So each of the 8 identified domain areas have a list of quality indicators. Okay, so you've got the domain area, which we just listed off, those 8 that we were just talking about, and each of those domain areas are going to have a list of quality indicators, a list of common errors, and a self-assessment matrix. So with the self-assessment matrix, it's based on the idea that change does not happen overnight, and instead meaningful change happens in a series of steps that happen over time. They can be used by agency or organization to provide systemic change. They can also be used by an individual or team to guide planning or identify professional development needs. In this case, they should not be used to reflect provision of services across the agency. So that's just saying that just because one IP team is having a challenge doesn't mean that the whole agency is having a challenge. Ideally, QIAT would be used to ensure quality services across an agency or organization. But probably most people watching this recording don't have the power and the control to make the whole agency or district take a look at their processes, and so the impact that you can have on the ground is at the IEP team level, and these are very usable by IEP teams. So we're just going to look at one of the domain areas, AT implementation, to kind of get a sense of how this works. So AT implementation is that particular domain area, and we'll talk a little bit about the quality indicators in that area. Essentially, AT implementation is like the decision about AT has been made, and the kid is actually using the AT in the classroom, and what does that look like? And so this is a really common one, right? We've gone through the whole process, we've selected a device, and gosh, you've been trying for 3 years and the student just hasn't made any progress. What do? I say, pull out your QIAT self matrix as a team and look at it together. So here are the quality indicators of AT implementation. The first one is assistive technology implementation proceed according to a collaboratively developed plan. So the intent of that is following IEP development, all those involved in implementation work together to develop a written action plan that provides detailed information about how the AT will be used in specific educational settings, what will be done, and who will do it. Okay, so that's the first quality indicator. The second quality indicator is assistive technology is integrated into the curriculum and daily activities of the student across environments. So the intent is assistive technology is used when and where it's needed to facilitate the student's access to and mastery of the curriculum. Assistive technology may facilitate active participation in educational activities, assessments, extracurricular activities, and typical routines. The third quality indicator is persons supporting the student across environments in which the assistive technology is expected to be used, share responsibility for the implementation of the plan. The intent of that is that all persons who work with a student know their roles and responsibilities, are able to support the student using the assistive technology, and are expected to do so. The fourth quality indicator is persons supporting the student provide opportunities for the student to use a variety of strategies, including assistive technology, and to learn which strategies are most effective for particular circumstances and tasks. The intent of that is when and where appropriate, students are encouraged to consider and use alternative strategies to remove barriers to participation or performance. Strategies may include the student's natural abilities, use of assistive technology, other supports, or modifications to the curriculum, task, or environment. The fifth quality indicator is learning opportunities for the student, family, and staff are an integral part of the implementation. So again, the intent is learning opportunities needed by the student, staff, and family are based on how the assistive technology will be used in each unique environment. Training and technical assistance are planned and implemented as ongoing processes based on current and changing needs. The sixth quality indicator as assistive technology implementation is initially based on assessment data and is adjusted based on performance data. So the intent of that is formal and informal assessment data guide initial decision making and planning for AUT implementation. As the plan is carried out, student performance is monitored, and implementation is adjusted in a timely manner to support student progress. And finally, the last quality indicator for AT implementation is assistive technology implementation includes management and maintenance of the equipment and materials. So the intent of that is for technology to be useful. It is important that equipment management responsibilities are clearly defined and assigned. Specifics may differ based on the technology. Some general areas may include organization of the equipment and materials, responsibility for acquisition, setup, repair, and replacement in a timely fashion, and assurance the equipment is operational. Okay, so we know all of our quality indicators, right? So under the domain of AT implementation, those are the indicators that we would look for to make sure we have a quality AT implementation plan in place. Some common errors, though, that are made in this domain are implementation is expected to be smooth and effective without addressing specific components in a plan. Team members assume that everyone understands what needs to be happening and know what to do. So there's no plan in place, essentially. We're just hoping that all the providers know what to do. Plans for implementation are created and carried out by one IEP team member. So we need the whole IEP team participating. There shouldn't just be the teacher visually impaired in a separate classroom implementing the AT plan. The team focuses on device acquisition and doesn't discuss the implementation. So that's a common error, right? We're all excited about getting the device, but we never talk about how we're actually going to integrate the device into the child's day. It doesn't just happen by magical osmosis, although that would be really less stressful if it did. An implementation plan is developed that is incompatible with instructional environments. That's another big one. Like the student maybe is like, oh, the student is going to use, only a desktop computer to do access everything, including communication throughout their entire school day. Well, then they go to physical education class, and there's somebody's going to roll a rolling desk down the hallway with their desktop computer and plug it in. Probably not. So that we've got an implementation plan, but we didn't really consider the instructional environments. No one takes responsibility for the care and maintenance of AT devices, and so they're not available or in working order when needed. But this one's a really common one, right? There's no plan for who's going to be making sure things are charged and well maintained and updated. Contingency plans for dealing with broken or lost devices are not made in advance. And that's what we kind of talked about. Always need that low, mid, and high tech continuum in a child's day. Okay, so I'm just going to give two examples here of two of the quality indicators and what you would kind of see. So when you go into the self assessment matrix, as a team, you're going to sit down and say, okay, let's talk about quality indicator number 3. So person supporting the student across all environments in which the AT is expected to be use shared responsibility for the implementation of the plan. So as a team, you're going to say, where do we fall on this, right? So responsibility for implementation is not accepted by any team member. So that's like a 1. That's nobody's doing a good job. All the way to 5 is responsibility for implementation. It's consistently shared among team members across all environments. So you would look and reflect, I won't read all the words on this matrix, but you would look and reflect as a team, where do we feel like we are? And then the goal is, let's say you're at a 2, it's not to get a 5. That's unrealistic that overnight you're going to be able to go do a 2 to a 5. But as a team, can you work towards getting to a 3 or 4? And then when you're solidly to a 3 or 4, can you continue forward to a 5? The next matrix is person supporting is the 4th quality indicator. Person supporting the student provide opportunities for the student to use a variety of strategies, including AT, and to learn which strategies are most effective for particular circumstances and tasks. So again, a 1 would be no strategies are provided to support the accomplishment of tasks. That's not a good situation to find yourself in as an IEP team. All the way to 5, multiple strategies are provided. Students are consistently encouraged to select and use the most appropriate strategy for each task. So again, you're going to evaluate from your particular team, but what this self matrix, if you do it for the whole area that you have a particular concern with, it's going to reveal areas that you need to build out your AT implementation plan a little bit more robustly. And so I just wanted to share this because I think that there is a lot of inconsistent application of assistive technology for all children with visual impairments, including those with CVI, across many, many different school settings all across the country. And people feel a little bit hopeless, or they feel like they need to be experts in the area of assistive technology um, to be able to be able to do anything, able to affect any change. And the reality is that a parent, who doesn't know maybe that much about AT, but has concerns about how AT is written into their child's IP or how it's being implemented or how the evaluation went, can bring this to the team. And as a team, you really can get into the nitty gritty and get to the bottom of where is our plan falling apart? Where are we not aligning ourselves with best practices? So that being said, I'm just going to turn my camera back on. And that is all of the content that I had to share. I really appreciate everybody's participation and care for this topic, which is an important one.
Find other videos in this series on assistive technology and CVI, and learn more about CVI at cvinow.org.